Hello artists, welcome to week 4 of art. So this week, Miss Lasdin will be teaching you how to continue working on your shape to form. So last week we learned what is form and how form is something that is in our three-dimensional world where we can physically feel that form, and also in our two-dimensional world where it's the 2D paper, but it makes it look like it's three-dimensional. And how are we doing that is by shading and how our shapes are looking and how you're taking curves, different curves on your shapes, right? So you're creating the illusion of form. So we're going to continue practicing that. I'm going to teach you how to draw a cube and how to draw a cylinder and do some extra shading practice and what we'll do. So today is all about practice, 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 practice. So draw as many shapes as you can during class time and really practice all the variety of shapes. All right, have fun today, artists. Okay, artists, so you can see I am ready to get started making my shapes to form. I have my computer with my guide on there, so you'll want that out for this demo, which I'm going to just put that to the side. And then you also are going to want a ruler, eraser, your sharpener, your Sharpie, and a pencil. And we are ready to get started by, first what you want to do is just pick a spot where your light source is. So maybe I'll draw myself a little light here. So this is my light. I'm going for a non-natural light. So you can put a sunshine or your really weird Miss Lasdin bulb. It doesn't look kind of great, but you know, it is what it is. All right, so our first one that we've already done in class is we made a circle and we changed it into a sphere. You're right. So if my light is coming from here, then my shadow is on the opposite side. So we really worked on using the curvature of our shape to really kind of define that, right? So we had that nice curve in that line. And you can see I'm not going to use the blending technique as we learned. I'm just going to be using line here to create that illusion. And my shadow would be on this side. So we all worked on that last class. My circle kind of isn't perfect sphere. Maybe that's more like a, I don't know, an orange, a misshapen orange. Maybe I get my little top on top there. So it's my orange. Okay, and then our next one on our chart is our triangle. So we're going to take a triangle and we're going to change that into a cone. So I just sketched that out, but it is also a good practice to get your ruler out and get some really nice lines, nice straight lines here, not maybe your shaky lines like I just had. Look at that little shaky line. And I kind of did go hard here and light in the beginning, but for your cone, what you're doing is you're going to keep your top the same, but you're coming out and doing this kind of rounded shape for your cone. So from a triangle into a cone. And so there is my cone. And then again, light source is coming this way. So I'm going to I like to turn my paper on this one. I'm going to use that same curve, right? Because you want to kind of show that there's this curve going out and around on the shape. So, because look at the difference if I were to just go across. So if I was to do my shading just across like this, it really just flattens that out, right? It doesn't give that illusion that it's a curved object. So get that little curve in here, just to really kind of emphasize that that's a curve that you're viewing. Okay. And my shadow would be over here. And maybe I kind of try to get like kind of a little bit of a cone shape going, right? For my shadow. Kind of fun that, you know, it's not just, it's a real strong shadow. It's got some strong sun on it, strong light bulb on there. All right, now I'm going to go into a pyramid. So for a pyramid, draw a nice wide obtuse angle, and then draw a line right down the middle of that guy, like so. And then what you're going to do is to make it so that this isn't, so we're not looking at the front of the pyramid, we're looking to the side. So we're going to move this angle going back this way and this one going back this way. And I can erase, and I have myself a pyramid. If the sun was coming on this side, this entire surface would probably be dark, right? Because maybe there's a little tiny bit on this side, like almost a glimmer of darkness because my light's coming here, but this whole surface here would be completely dark. And again, I'm going to kind of really make it a strong light, so I'm going to bring out my shadow in a very strong style. And the other thing to watch too is kind of imagine that you have a surface here. So there's like a surface that this is sitting on. So sometimes you might just cut that shadow so that it doesn't look like it's, so it looks like it's on an angle coming off of this guy versus coming down. So just kind of look at it and see what you think looks accurate. So step back from your work and like kind of look and see, like, is this looking right? What would I do to change it? Like maybe this shadow isn't correct having it come out here, right? So maybe I just really erase that off. All right, cylinder. So we start with a rectangle. I'm going to lightly draw a rectangle, and we're going to add a cylinder. And so the thing that happens in a cylinder is this thing called an ellipse. So an ellipse is kind of like a circle on top here. Creating an ellipse is kind of a challenging thing. So a lot of times we might create an ellipse and it might look more like a marshmallow, or it might look more like a lemon or an eyeball. So what you're really trying to do is practice an elliptical shape that kind of takes this nice curve like that. So be careful not to have these hard edges and lemons. If you find yourself having these, really try to use your full arm versus your wrist. So if you're drawing like this, it's sometimes hard to get that shape, but if you're using your full arm and making this stiff up front, then you can get that elliptical shape. So you take your little ellipse on top and you're going to bring this down to the bottom, and just like our cone, we don't have a straight line going across on our what are we drawing? Cylinder. We have another curve, and it should match this curve, and this curve should be fairly matched. And you got yourself a cylinder. Again, I can get my little shadow in there, maybe a tiny bit of line, and remember that line isn't going this way, it's got a little tiny curve to it, so we know that that's taking a curve. So just always kind of imagine that these things are sticking out and that you're drawing around something, right? When you're making those curved lines. All right. What else can we get from a rectangle? Is ourselves a rectangular prism. So just like how we kind of took this prism like here, we're going to do it in our rectangle. So the way to do that is to have all of your lines coming off of this rectangle facing the same way. So I'm going to have them all shooting out this way. So I'm going to start on this side here, and then I'm going to go to this corner, and you want to keep those angles the same. So the way I have my ruler here should be the same over here and the same over here. And then these edges are important. I didn't draw this one because you can't see it, this face. This is a face of a box, so you can't see that one. But the angle of this here is going to be the same in the back. So make sure parallel lines here to the back. And then same with this one. This line coming down is going to be parallel here. So remember, get your ruler on that front line and just move it slightly back. Don't rotate it, and you have it on the back. Because what happens if I do draw a rectangle and I have my lines going all this way, right? What happens if I don't use that same angle? I get a completely different shape, right? That one, so it kind of might look a little off, right? It doesn't look like it's receding in depth. Unless this line was taking the same way, I could make a unique shape, right? But you remember, if you see that angle in the front, it will keep the angle in the back, the same angle, so that that's what our eye is seeing. Okay. Again, shading, I'll probably have really darkness here and here. Get my shadow. Maybe a little tiny shade there, but real dark back here. I got myself a box or a rectangular prism. All right, solid cube. A lot of you have learned this for your solid cube, I think, right? You're going to tell me I know how to draw a cube because you might have learned that, right? Which is fine if that's the way you want to start out, but sometimes that way can kind of confuse you and get you kind of lost. And are you really seeing what you want to see there? My recommendation is to get your ruler out and get that face of your cube all measured out perfectly. I'm doing 1 inch all the way around on my cube. Okay. And then I'm going to take, this time I'm going to take my pieces that are receding in space. I'm going to take them going to the right this time versus the left last time. I'm going to draw some lines going this way and this way. And remember, they all should stay about the same. Let's double check my work there. So I'm that one's a little off, and there. And then do you remember how these lines are? The one over here, do I go this way with it? Do I go this way with it? Do I just match those? No, right? You want to make sure you're matching this line and this line the same. So again, take your ruler, and you have this line here, and you're just moving it back. So you can decide your box is this big, or you could go here. So you're kind of, to make a perfect cube, you're kind of giving yourself an eyeball of, because this length and this length won't be the same. So it's just an eyeball of like, that looks like a good cube. And then you draw down. And then coming across this way, again, I'm not just matching those lines that I drew. I'm using this measurement here and that, making that line there parallel to this line back here. So coming to my point and drawing my line going across. And then you can clean up. I'm drawing really hard. It's a bad habit of mine. I can't break it. So I use a lot of eraser in my life. But if you can, lighten up, lighten up. I always got told to lighten my drawing. Anyways, let's say my sun is over on this side, and I'm going to put my shading over here, right? And my nice piece like that, okay? So you can do this, which is a transparent cube, so you're seeing through that cube, right? I have that on there. I personally like drawing cubes this way, and even if I wanted it to be transparent, I could have done a parallel line here and my parallel line here, parallel line from here to here, and that's the inside of my box. And then from here to here is, oh, I got a dent in my ruler. From here to here is the back of the box, right? So how would I create the illusion that this is, that I'm seeing this as a clear cube? Or maybe I want to create, maybe I would lighten up my darkness here and make it so that it seems like it's see-through, but I would still have my dark shadow. And maybe I also darken some of the panels here, right? So that they seem like they're a solid surface here. So you're kind of looking through, right? You gonna see that? I'm gonna just blend, do a little more blending. Maybe I get this one a little darker than the rest because I want to make the illusion that it's on the inside. Kind of using my eraser today as my blending tool. But play around with it, you know, what you're seeing. and how you see the illusion of your see-through box. So you can see, like, you can still see that line, so it makes it seem like it's there, but I kind of shaded it so that you think it's still a transparent box, right? All right, so that is it on techniques on how to draw and write from that form. The next one would be using your Sharpie to do that. So things that I might have started to talk about was in last class was using your Sharpie for doing light to dark. So you can do, this is called stippling. You can do little stippling. So you could do your dots that are closer together. And again, I'm not pressing really hard. I'm doing really light motions. So you can do that to make a texture from light to dark. So the more dots I have together, the darker that scale is. And the less dots I have, the lighter it is. This is a really long process. So if you really want to do that, you are welcome to, because it's some people think it's really, really fun and they love it, but you know, it can get really tiring really fast. So know that it's a long commitment there. The other thing I talked about was using lines. So using lines to go from, if you have a bunch of lines close together, and I briefly talked about this, if you have a bunch of lines close together and then you start slowly moving them apart, that's another way to create a gradient. So you can see this is my darkest dark over on this side, lightest light. Another one is cross hatching. So doing those lines all close together here and far apart. And then I add myself some it's called cross hatching. So you're hatching some extra lines in there. And you can see that the tighter this cross hatch is, the darker. So dark to light again. So those are things that you can do to fill in with your Sharpie. Instead of your pencil, you could do some line work. So let's just show, if I were to do my pyramid, I could do a drawing of my pyramid freehand or with a pencil, depending on your comfort. And I accidentally made that line really thick. So guess what? My shadow is going to be on this side. Sometimes you just take your mistakes into masterpieces. And then here is where I'm going to have my lines that are kind of really the darker lines. So I can create maybe real dark down here, a little lighter up there. And I have my shapes, and I could bring some of that line around the front, right? So you kind of get that illusion of depth. And you could also, I could have done that with like the points, the single line, the double line. So other things too is just using colored pencils. You're going to use colored pencils. You can do it two ways. You can draw your shape with your pencil, and then you can use your color to be the one that's moving through and getting that dark to light. So I could use the color, my colored pencil as my dark, and then, you know, really use light here for that lighter shade. But I can also use a lighter color. So think about your different colors. So like this is a dark color, right? And light color. But you can practice your different color variations and how creating light through color. Another thing that I can do too is I can take my already shaded objects, and this is all nice and shaded. So if I just add my color right over the top, keeping that same line quality that I talk about, right? Moving that line the same way. So you can see I still have my shaded item, but I'm coloring it in. So multiple ways to kind of get color in your object, but yet still use that shading that you already did, right? Okay. So have some fun, practice all these different shapes. Today is your practice, like really getting all these different shapes out, maybe trying some different textures on your shapes, trying different shading, getting some colored pencils out. So you're just moving through all these different shapes. And next class, what we're going to do is we're going to finalize and use some good paper and really make shapes that we want to keep and cut out for our final project. So today is your day to practice, practice, practice. Have fun.